Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the diaspora. Welcome to another episode of Diaspora Connects Property Show. And today I'm so excited because I have a guest on the show, and her name is Gloria Zimba. She lives in the UK. She is a seasoned Zambian property buyer. And I am so excited to speak to her because she's going to share her experiences about buying property in Zambia and how she's done it and how she's managed not to lose money, not to be swindled. So I'm really excited for all of us to learn from her experience. In case we haven't met before, my name is Natasha Chumia. I'm a director of Diaspora Connect, where our sole objective is to give you information and inspiration to help you buy property in a safe and reliable way. Gloria, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so maybe we can just start by you giving a brief background about who you are, where you live, before we get into the meat of the video.
All right, thank you. So, my name is Gloria Zimba, like you've mentioned. I live in Manchester, and we've been living here in the UK for 15 years now. And we've got quite a vibrant community of Zambians here in Manchester. I'm working as a quality assurance analyst. I'm also at uni. I'm going into my last year of uni. I'm married to Solomon. We've got two beautiful boys who keep us busy with their football activities. Just so that I can give you an idea of how busy my life gets. But yeah, that's basically me.
Yeah, that's a busy life. Kids, husband,
Yeah,
university, you have a lot on your plate.
too much. Yeah, pretty much.
So now just tell us, when did you leave Zambia? Did you leave 15 years ago, or have you just been living in Manchester for 15 years?
No, we've been living here for 15 years. So 2004, I think it was, when we moved over here. Living in Manchester for about 15 years. We lived in London for maybe 3 months. We didn't
Oh,
like it there. So moved to Manchester, which is more like my hometown back home, Kitwe. It's so chilled
oh,
out compared to
oh,
London. I just didn't like the fastness of life in London. So yeah, we've been in Manchester for 15 years, I would say. Yeah,
okay. So you're a Copper Belt girl.
I'm a copper belt girl. Yes.
Okay, so tell me, let's go into now your property buying experience. What made you want to buy property at home in the first place?
Initially, when we came over to the UK, like most of us do, we were saying we'll only be here for 5 years and then go back. It's been 15 years. So
Yeah.
during that 5 years, our plan was always to make sure that we've got something back home, something that we can invest in, so that when we do eventually go back home, we've got something. But then again, if you look at the pension schemes here in the UK, it's not enough for you to retire on. So
Mm,
the plan has always been to have multiple streams of income, because
mm,
that's how millionaires are made.
that's
So property was quite up there for us to get into. So there was no question property was going to be something that was our priority to do, really. So that's how I found myself into property.
okay. And before you actually started the buying process, what sort of hesitations did you have? What concerns did you have? Because now you'd been living in the UK, you decided that you wanted to buy property, you had stayed longer than you expected.
Mm.
What concerns did you have?
I think mainly, like everyone else, is the trust. Who do you trust to look after your property or to buy you this land that's available? Who do you send money to without, you know, having to cross your fingers and hope that that money gets to where it should go? So the main thing really was, who do I trust? But then when we were in Zambia visiting, we came across an ad, which had, it was a gated community, and they already had their own builders. All you needed to do really was just pay, and they build for you. And that quite resonated with me, that what they were speaking my language at that point. So I was quite intrigued. So I went to the offices to get the information myself to see if these people were actually there and genuine.
Yes.
So I wasn't disappointed, because what they offered is something that I never thought is available. And that's something that I think us in the diaspora don't get. We don't get much information about what's out there available,
Okay.
and where to start.
Okay. So you've given us a lot of information, and I want to break it down for our diaspora family.
Yeah,
So basically, you came here, you were on the ground, and you were able to do your own investigations. You went around, looked at different places. Is that right?
that's correct. I think that's quite vital. Regularly visit and not rely on information over the phone, or through relatives. Go on the ground, do your own research as well. And because when you do your own research, you can actually see whether this is actually genuine or not.
Okay,
So yeah, go on the ground.
good. So now you found this gated community where they
Yeah,
actually build a property for you.
yeah.
And what about that community made you think, yes, I'm onto a winner here?
I think it was, there was another gated community where I heard about horror stories.
Mm.
So this one was completely different. This one was done by the Chinese. And when we actually went on site, you could see that all what they were talking about was actually on site. It was actually happening. And so there was trust built straight away, because when we went on site, we could actually see that what they were saying is actually true.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah.
So the fact that there was a track record, that there were things happening on the ground, is what gave you that level of trust.
Absolutely. Otherwise, I don't think I would have.
And
Yeah.
so you proceeded to buy that property. You own that property now?
Yeah, I own that property now. We've got tenants in already.
Great.
Yeah, so it worked out really, really well. Everything that we were promised uh, was actually absolutely true, and even more. You know, we got a really good bargain at the time, because now that property has, the value has gone up twice. It's like, you know, it's
Fantastic.
gone up. So yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that's great because I did an article for our newsletter recently, and one of the reasons why I encourage people to buy now is because property is still appreciating.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
value of property is still appreciating. So I'm glad your experience has borne that out.
No, that experience has really taught us that, you know, once you buy a property, I think within 2 years, the value goes up. So it's a good investment.
Okay, great. So tell us about any other experience you had. So you had that experience, it went really well.
Yeah.
Um, then how long was it before you were ready now to buy something else?
I think once they started building and then showing us every step, every level where they were, it kind of gave me some confidence in trying on my own. So
Okay.
I took a step and went to my town, which I'm familiar with. So went to Kitwe.
Mhm.
Um, and luckily for us, we've got quite trusted friends that um, just volunteered to project manage it for us. So
Fantastic.
I would highly recommend that you keep contact with friends back home, keep a good network around you, and make
Mm,
sure you have people who can actually do that for you, but also don't take advantage of them by expecting them to do all the running around.
Right.
Give them an incentive, send them money, extra money maybe, and say that's for your fuel for running around, and not expect them to just do everything for you. I think that's where the monies go missing. If you just expect them to do things for you, give them an incentive or agree beforehand an amount that you can pay them monthly for them to run the project for you.
That's really good. I like that angle, because I think sometimes people think that they forget that people here at home are also busy living
Oh,
their own lives. And for them to take time out of their schedule to go and manage your project, I mean,
yeah,
it's asking a lot to
yeah,
just do it as a favor.
absolutely. I mean, even here, if somebody back home asks you to do something here, you have to drive to far places to go and look for things. So an
Mm,
incentive of fuel money, that
mm,
actually goes a long way, because you'll be thinking, all right, I've got this, let me go and do this for this person. So it is important to not take advantage of the people who are helping you.
yeah.
Always try, even indirectly, because sometimes they refuse, like our project manager refused to be paid, but
Oh,
indirectly.
nice.
Yeah, no, good friends, eh?
Yeah, those are good friends.
But indirectly, we would always squeeze something in and say, "Oh, get the kids Hungry Lion," but
Oh, that's
you've
nice.
given them enough money for 500 Hungry Lions or something like that. Uh,
Yes.
so that
Excellent.
works that way, yeah.
Hmm. And I always advocate using professionals as well,
Yeah,
because sometimes some people may not have that network.
yeah.
So if you have a professional that you're paying for that service, I think that can also work as equally.
Sorry about that. I think I had a call coming in.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I thought it was our internet.
No, no, it's not you. Definitely not you.
Yeah, so I was saying one of the things that I always advocate for is using professionals, because some people don't have that network of trustworthy friends that they can rely on.
Absolutely. So with that project where our friend was doing it for us, he had his own company where they construct. So he had people who would do that for him. But what we've decided now with our project after that one is to have someone go through a construction company,
Great.
and we found someone who would tell you how much the materials are, how much the labor is, to get to a certain level, and you
Mm,
agree payment terms. So now we've completely said thank you to our friend. He's done a really good job. But with our
great.
next project, we are going with someone who's uh, professional, and that's the job that he does. Um, so it's important, like you're saying, to find professional people who are registered as well, to make sure that you don't get a house that start falling apart within months.
Absolutely. And Gloria, I just want to emphasize a few important points that you've made. You used, even when you're using a friend, he's a friend who has experience in the construction sector. So you didn't
Absolutely.
just use somebody who has got no clue about construction or building and say, can you do this thing for me? I think that's
Yeah.
really important to emphasize.
Absolutely, because this is where the problems come in. If you find a friend who has no clue, or who they themselves haven't built a house,
Yeah.
then they have no clue. They have no
Yeah.
clue where to go when you need a plumber to fix something, or you need intricate things that properties require. It's best to always go with someone who's got the experience, and who's also got more experience than just building their own property. I think that's quite important, to find that person. And I know it would be difficult. And if there's no person or friend who's got that experience, I would highly recommend having to hire or pay a little bit extra for those professionals to project manage your investment.
Thank you. That is such a key point. I think it's so important because also in all the countries that you guys live in, as in the diaspora, you obviously hire professionals to do certain jobs, and that should
Oh,
also apply when you're buying property and building at home.
that's absolutely right, because here you can't just do things on asking a friend to do something. You pay that little extra for somebody who's registered to perform that task. And I think we've got this mentality where back home you're thinking, oh, we can pick up someone from the market to do that
Yeah.
plumbing, or to do it is. I remember when we were still working on our project, we asked someone to do pillars for us,
Hmm.
and obviously we were looking at saving, and someone just found someone who does these pillars, and then once those pillars were done, oh my goodness, I was nearly yes, I was nearly I was like, oh my god, what's up?
Hmm.
We spent more money because we had to bring those pillars down and ask someone who's professional to do it. So
Exactly.
it's important to not, just because you want to save a bit of money, because cheap is expensive.
I was
So
just about to say that cheap is expensive.
it definitely is on that part. I really, really learned my lesson. So these pillars were awful, but
Oh,
then had to bring them down and have someone professional do them, and they look beautiful now. But at an expense, at our expense.
yeah, yeah. The other thing that you mentioned, which I also want to highlight, is somebody who's registered
Yeah.
because it's good to have a professional, but also being registered is important. Can you just say more about that for our diaspora audience?
Yeah, so there's a lot of information out there that I think people in the diaspora hardly get our hands on. Usually, we're used to going online and finding this information available, but you go onto a website and you find that the last time it was updated was years ago. For example, if you're looking for a constructor or registered architect. So it is vitally important to find registered architects, builders, make sure that they are registered. There's a website, I think, that you can check to see if they are registered. So it's not relying on word of mouth when somebody says that they are registered. Go and find that information to make sure that they are indeed registered. And I'm sure you would know more information about where exactly they need to go, where they can find that information.
Exactly.
Because it's important to, once you find a builder, is you also do your own research and not rely on word of mouth. So do your own background research and see whether that's something that you're comfortable with. So yeah, it is vitally important to make sure that they are registered, and they are out there.
Yes,
They are
absolutely.
registered.
I think that what people need to understand is that for every part of the property buying process, right up to construction, there are registered service providers that you can use, registered suppliers. Whether it's a contractor who's registered under NCC, the National Council for Construction, whether it's
Yeah.
an architect who's registered under their institute, all of us as professionals have an association or an institute that we are aligned to. So there's the State Agents Institute, the Lawyers Association of Zambia, the architects have one, the surveyors have
Yeah.
one. So I really like that point that you're bringing up, Gloria, that people really need to just go that extra mile and, do some research and find out that the person that they're dealing with is actually above board.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there's something that we had talked about offline, which I just want to bring now to this
Yeah.
discussion, which
Mhm.
is the issue of affordability.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes people think, oh, I can't do it; it's just too expensive.
Mhm.
Can you say something about that
Mhm.
affordability and how you can buy property at a reasonable rate?
Right. Okay. Brilliant. So when we were starting our first project, we hardly had any money. It was a visit. and then found myself going to this site and thinking, oh yeah, that's nice. And then going back to the office and they're like, okay, so when do you want it? I'm like, I don't even have any money at the minute. I'm not gonna. So we always wait to have a sackload of money before we actually consider investing. But they had a payment plan where it was quite affordable. They had a mortgage company in Zambia that were offering a mortgage, even though the experience I had with the mortgage provider wasn't very good. So um, we in the diaspora have an advantage because you can actually get a loan which has favorable interest rates here than actually getting a mortgage in Zambia. So you could do that, get a loan here. The repayments are quite low, the interest rates, and then pay that way, pay for the property that way. And so you can also negotiate. We had to negotiate with this company because I think the repayments were in 20 months. And what we wanted to do, we didn't want to go in debt in order to acquire this property. So we negotiated for a longer repayment period. Once they see that you are committed and you are paying those amounts when you say you are, people are quite flexible, with the repayments. And so because we find it easier to get a loan over here, which is low interest, I would then recommend that you do it that way instead of getting a loan or mortgage in Zambia. So it is affordable.
So I just want to highlight what you've brought out there. I did a short video for our Facebook group on getting a mortgage. And one of the things that I pointed out is that Zambia is a high interest rate environment. So even though people get really excited at the prospect that, oh, they're diaspora mortgages, I can get a mortgage at home, it is expensive money. And so, the first thing is always to look at, well, can I borrow from wherever I am now? Is that a possibility? So I like that you brought that out. And then the second thing, which I think is really key that you've mentioned, is negotiating. That's so important. Because you don't just look at something and say, oh, well, it's too expensive, I can't do it. You shrug your shoulders and, you just go back to the UK or wherever. I really like the fact that you actually decided to negotiate. So that's really important.
Absolutely. And there's always room. If you are serious, someone will, they can tell that you are serious. Always make sure that you're within your means. Stay within the lane where you can afford it. Don't go into debt to acquire this, dream home. If you can't afford a dream home now, get a smaller property, use that as an investment, but always stay within your means. Make sure that you are telling the business or the company you're getting the property from that this is all you can afford and this is all you can afford to pay so long, and give them a time scale of when you think that you will be able to, finish off paying that amount.
Yeah, I love that point, Gloria. I love it, which is budgeting. So critical. I can't tell you how many people I speak to. I do a lot of consultations with people, the diaspora. And the first thing I need to ask them that I need to know, which is so critical, is what is your budget? And it's amazing how many people be, oh, well, just, how much are the prices? Just tell me how much they are. And I'm like, look, there are $1 million properties and there are $10,000 properties. There's a vast range. And I need to know where to start. So I like that point. So you guys obviously sat down, you had a budget, you knew what you could afford.
Absolutely. My husband is an accountant, so he's quite savvy with things like that. We obviously had to cut down on a lot of things that, luxuries that we had, eating out all the time. We had to cut down on that so that we can save money, because we knew that this is something that an investment for the future. you know, even the boys knew that, you know, you can't have takeaway every Friday because, oh, mom and dad are saving. You know,
Yes.
everyone in the house was like, oh, why have you bought that? I thought we were saving, you know. So get,
I love it. I love it.
especially when when I buy shoes, they were like, why are you buying shoes? I thought we're saving. Like, well, so
No, I love
yeah, get into the habit of saving to make sure that you are within your means with, you know, getting property, and don't make sure you don't go into debt.
Yeah, I love that so much because wherever you want to buy property, even if you negotiate the best payment terms, you have to have like a down payment. You have to have a
Yeah,
deposit, and
yeah,
that deposit will come out of your savings. So
yeah,
if you are serious about wanting to buy property, you have to actually start doing something about it way before you identify a property, which is to
absolutely.
have savings. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I like the way the whole family was involved
yeah,
in
they
the
were.
budget. That's great. And I just want to point out because some people may be watching this and they'll be thinking, well, you know, she's a quantity surveyor and
Mhm.
sorry, you said a quality analyst?
It's analyst, yes, quality
Yes.
assurance. Yeah,
Yes, she's a quality assurance analyst. He's a accountant. They obviously have tons of money, but that's not the case.
no,
Anyone can do a budget and anyone can save.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, um, even though I work as an analyst, my husband's an accountant, we still have bills to pay here. So it's not like, oh, there's always extra. There's always bills to pay here. And
Yes.
at the end of the day, you have to cut out on, you know, the luxuries that you have. I think one thing that I couldn't convince the boys to cut off was the football. Like, you know, this football channel. That one wasn't going regardless, so I had to give in on that. But you know, you
Yeah.
always have to make sure, even if you're working, it doesn't mean that you have, you know, that excess money. You always have to make sure that you deliberately plan for the savings. Use the savings to then, you know, get onto the property ladder, and make sure. Like one thing I always stress is not to get into debt. It's quite important to make sure that you're not into debt. You can get, you know, the loans and then make sure that you're repaying, keeping up with the loans, but just to make sure that you are within your means. So with the property that we went for, there were properties there that were, you know, a townhouse. I would have loved a townhouse, but I couldn't afford it, you know.
Yeah.
So we knew what we could afford, and we went with what we could afford. So yeah, always keep that in mind.
And also, I think that people don't realize there's so many different options that
Mm,
you can go for, which will meet you at your budget.
yeah,
And you know, sometimes it might be getting a smaller plot,
yeah,
and not even getting a finished structure like an
mm,
apartment or a house. It might just be starting with the plot, but at least you've started.
yeah,
Yeah, so really critical.
absolutely. I think it's important to get onto it. Buy a plot. You don't have to build straight away. Buy it, then you can sit back and start thinking of what you want to do with it. If it stays for
Yes.
2 years and you decide, actually, I can't build, you can sell it. And at that point, it would have actually increased in value. So you will make something out of it as well. So you don't have to stick with it. If you can't afford it, you can sell it and make a profit out of it.
Yes, that's so true. Correct. Now, the time is running, and I somehow suspected that this would happen. I really want to, before we wind up, I
Yeah.
really want to talk about you are there in the UK, you're in Manchester. You mentioned that there is quite a vibrant community of Zambians in Manchester. So, from your perspective, what do you think are the main obstacles that are holding people back from investing back home and buying property?
I think the main thing, the number one thing is trust, who to trust. Because all you hear is, oh, they're gonna eat my money. You know, I'm not gonna see it. I've seen people crying because they were sent pictures of a property that they thought was theirs, when in actual fact it was just a picture from somewhere. So the horror stories that you hear, it's rare to actually hear good stories. We recently had a afternoon tea party for our ladies here in Manchester. And I spoke about my experiences, and afterwards I had a lot of questions from people who were amazed that, you know, I haven't been swindled at all, and they wanted to find out how did I do it, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, and I was like, it's so, for me, I found it so simple because I was on the ground, and I think I'm blessed enough to have friends as well who are trustworthy and who were willing to help. But also, it's good to have a good network support. Mix with people who are actually doing something about property.
Yes.
You know, mix with people who are actually successful at the property market or the property development. Once you hang around those people, your mindset starts to change, because really here it's the mindset where you hear someone saying, "Oh, I can't do that," then automatically you're going to be thinking, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because she said, you know, she's had a bad experience, so I'm not going to do that." So the first one is really trusting who to trust, and also maybe money, because people are waiting to have a sackload of money before they invest. I think at the time on my first investment, I had 5,000 kwacha. I think that was 5 million at the time, 5,000. That's the only thing I put down. But
Fantastic.
already asked to choose my plot of land and choose my design, and very little money that I started with.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like I was saying, negotiate. Just tell them, I've
Yes.
only got this. Can I put this down, and then we can negotiate
Yes.
how we can pay off the rest. And I think the other challenge as well is there's not much information out there on available, you know, plots or land or houses. It's always difficult because I've experienced this myself, where you call a real estate agent and say, "Oh, I'm looking for a land or, you know, a house," and as soon as they know you're from abroad, the prices go up, you know. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's difficult to find someone that you can trust who can tell you the real value of what they're selling.
Yes.
And that's one thing I think that we're missing, is there's no much information on what's available. And this is how much it is, you know, coming out openly and saying, this is how much it is. These are the repayment plans. And so I think that's one thing that's a challenge as well. We don't have much information. I have to do a lot of research to find this sort of good deals on property.
Right. And, you know, I mean, that's why I started Diaspora Connect, was just to help overcome some of those challenges. And that's why on our website, we have different properties, so that people in the diaspora can see that, oh, there are these opportunities. And
Yeah.
of course, we can't have everything on the website. We just select a few developments that we want to bring to people's attention.
Yeah.
And I realized that the biggest job I have is to create trust with people.
Yeah.
Because it is scary to buy something from somebody who you don't know, somewhere where, you know, you're not familiar with. So I totally hear you that trust is a big thing, and just a lack of information
Yeah.
is quite a big challenge.
Yeah.
All right, so I could go on and on, but I realize I need to let you go soon.
Yeah.
So, can you just summarize, maybe in about 3 or 4 points or five, just how you have managed to buy property at home, even though you live in Manchester, without being swindled? Maybe just summarize your top 3 to 5 points that we've discussed.
All right. I think the main thing is make sure that you're on the ground. When you do visit, every time I visit, I'm always looking for an opportunity. So it's a holiday, but you're sort of working as well. So always keep your eyes open, ears as well on the ground, making sure that you're listening out for any opportunities. So be on the ground, do your own research. And then also, if you can, a site visit. If someone is selling land, they will tell you, oh, it's near this place. And then when you actually go to visit that piece of land, it's nowhere near where you thought it was. So, So it's vitally important to actually be on the ground, do your homework, do your own research. I would say engage into a professional as well. Always have a project manager who is experienced and registered. Have a full team of people who are qualified. Even if it means paying a little bit extra, do it, because in the end, it will be worth it, because your house won't be falling apart after that. And there's always, guarantees. I think it's a year or so after they've completed the project, that if anything happens, there's always a way of them fixing it without having you to pay any extra. And then also, I would say to go for it. It was a bit daunting when you look at the price of the house and you're thinking, how am I going to pay this? It is daunting, but go for it. Take that extra step. Increase your income, your extra income, your, as we call it, your side hustle, because you're not always going to get from your salary. It's difficult to save. Even if you save, the interest rates are ridiculous. The pensions are ridiculous. So it's always important to have a side hustle, and property investment is one of them that you can actually get something out of it. And it's also quite refreshing. It's a good feeling once you've built this property and afterwards you're like, this is really nice. And you have your first tenants in and you're like, oh, nice. And it's very addictive, though, I must say. Once you finish, you need to go on to the next one. So it's very addictive. And always make sure you've got your finances. Stay in your lane. Make sure that you're buying within your means. Cut out on anything that you don't necessarily need in order for you to save and make sure that you get onto that property ladder. It doesn't have to be in a well sought after area. I also like going into the rural areas, get pieces of land there, and it's always cheaper. As long as you've got land, there's always value in it. So I don't know how many points those are, but I think that's basically it.
That is fantastic, Gloria. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time, and thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And to our diaspora family, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I have immensely. And if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up. And please let me know in the comments what piece of Gloria's advice you really found to be useful. So give me your top piece of advice that you got out of this video. And if there are other Zambians in your community that you think would benefit from this video, then please share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss a video. And bye for now, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks, Gloria. Bye.
Bye. See ya.